I'd like to say this up front. Today's episode is one that I've been waiting to do for a while because dating as a Christian in 2026 is very complicated. And most of the advice out there is either outdated, it's useless, or it doesn't help anymore. We live in a culture of talking stages and situationships, of people who kind of are together but not official, of swiping left and right on potential life partners like we're ordering takeout or something, of emotional entanglement with no commitment, and physical intimacy with no covenant. And Christians are not immune to any of this. Welcome back to Assured and Brazen. I'm your host, Kevin Gertillis, and I'm glad you're back here with me again for another Saturday. And if you're new, um, I'm a Christian faith based storyteller, and I do it through podcast format. If that's something that interests you, please stay till the end and see if there's something that you like. Today, we're talking about Christian dating and what it actually looks like. Not the rule based, legalistic version, but the intentional, God honoring version. The one that's very practical and useful for the modern times. For real people navigating real feelings in a culture that has completely redefined what relationships are supposed to be. I want to tell you about a guy named Nathan, and Nathan was committed. Nathan was a committed Christian, loved God, went to church, had his theology straight, you know? And when it comes to dating, he was kind of a mess, but not because he was a bad person, but because he never actually decided what he was doing and why. And he met a woman named Yasmin through a mutual friend. Of course, she's beautiful, she's funny, she's smart, but she's not a believer. But she has, or I should say, she is or was spiritual. She's believing in something. And Nathan told himself that believing in something is close enough. God can work with that. They started talking, then hanging out, then spending every weekend together, the usual stuff, nothing too crazy. 6 months in, they were emotionally bonded, physically entangled, and Nathan was in a lot deeper than he intended to go, with someone whose vision for life looked very different from the vision he had for himself. He kept wanting and waiting for the right moment to have a real conversation about faith, about values, about where this was potentially going, right? The moment never felt quite right, so he kept going. A year later, it kind of ended badly. Not because either of them were, bad people, but because they had built something real on a foundation that was never really aligned. And unpacking that, the emotional investment, the time, the attachment, cost both of them more than it needed to. Nathan came to his friends afterwards, of course, and he knew from the beginning it wasn't the right thing for him, but he kept going, hoping that the feeling would be enough to make it work. And the feeling is never enough to make it work. That's where we're starting today. So let's name the reality that we're living in first, because you can't navigate a culture you don't look at clearly. If we are dating in an age of this talking stage, the situationship, the we're not together, but we're not together gray zone, that protects everyone from vulnerability, but it causes like maximum confusion, emotionally, of course. And I think that social media has given us infinite options and zero commitment in terms of like this muscle that we're supposed to be using to make sure that we are committed to certain things and doing certain things. Dating apps, of course, has made it almost like a game to connect on a human level, turning the search for a partner into something that feels like scrolling for a menu than seeking a covenant. And here's what it's done to a generation of Christians. It's made intentionality. It's made intentionality feel weird. And it has made clarity feel aggressive. It has made someone saying, I'm interested in you with purpose. Can we date with direction? Feel like, whoa, that's too much too fast. That's exactly what biblical dating looks like. And we need to stop apologizing for it. Now, I'm going to take you to this part of the Bible. I don't know if you know the story about Ruth and Boaz. And if you want to model anything for godly dating, look at that story for the perfect example. It's not one of those like love at first sight stories. It is not like a swipe right story. It's a story of a character revealed over time, pursued with intention, and honored with covenant. So the story goes, Boaz noticed Ruth, but he pursued her. He watched her. He saw how she worked, how she treated Naomi, the mom, I believe at the time, and what kind of person she was when nobody was giving her anything. In Ruth chapter 2, verse 11, Boaz actually tells her, I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. He knew her character before he made a move. And when he did pursue, he did it with clarity and he did it with honor. He didn't string her along, making her think this is going somewhere different. He kind of said it right there. He didn't create a situationship. He went to the city gate and made his intentions known. And he pursued her through the proper channels of covenant. That's the model. Not perfection, but intention. Not a checklist, but character. Not feelings first, but foundation first. Here's what intentional dating looks like today. Know why you're dating before you start. Are you dating to find a spouse? Or are you dating to fill a void? Escape loneliness? Or even enjoy the feeling of being wanted? Those are different activities and very different consequences. Just be honest with yourself before you're honest with anyone else. Be clear about your faith from the beginning. Not aggressive, not preachy, but clear. Your relationship with God is not a detail about you. It's the foundation of everything. If you have to hide it or minimize it to keep someone interested, that's a sign. Move with purpose. Dating without direction is just emotional spending with no investment plan. Know where you're going. Communicate it. And if the other person isn't moving in the same direction, honor them enough to be honest about it early. We have this other idea in the Bible. It's called equally yoked or unequally yoked, depending on how you look at it. Let's go to the scripture that makes most people feel uncomfortable. 2 Corinthians 6:14. Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For that, what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness? Now, I want to be careful here because this verse gets weaponized sometimes in the ways that are never loving or accurate. This is not a verse about avoiding non Christians as human beings. It's a verse about specific covenant or partnership, the joining of two lives, two visions, two futures. A yoke is a farming tool. It connects two animals so they can pull in the same direction. If the animals are different sizes, different strengths, different directions, the yoke doesn't work. Nobody goes anywhere. And both animals suffer. In the case of Nathan and Yasmin, they weren't bad people. They just couldn't pull in the same direction. Because the direction of your life as a Christian is fundamentally shaped by your faith. Your priorities, your values, how you handle money, how you raise children, how you face suffering. What you do on Sunday morning, all of it flows from who God is in you. If that foundation is absent or different from your partner, you're not just dating a person, you're eventually going to be building a life with someone pulling in a different direction. And that yoke is going to hurt. This is not about judging non believers, it's about being honest about what you're building and who you can build it with. In Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guarding your heart does not mean building a wall around it. It means being intentional about what you let in and how deep you let it go before the foundation is established. Now, emotional intimacy is powerful, of course. And in dating culture today, people establish deep emotional bonds way before they establish the basic things that make a relationship sustainable. You've had your most vulnerable conversations before you've had your most important ones. Guard your heart means don't let emotional or physical intimacy run ahead of relational clarity and spiritual alignment. In 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, it's read at weddings, but read it as a dating filter. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. If the relationship you are in regularly dishonors you, is driven by selfishness, or requires you to compromise who you are, that is not love. That is attachment. And two can feel identical until they don't. Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 7. 3 times in the book, the woman says, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. Until it's time. Until the foundation is there. Until the covenant is in place. The desire is not the problem. Timing is everything. Let me give you something concrete to walk away with. Pray before you pursue. Before you send the message, accept the date or let things go further. Ask God about it. Not as a formality, as genuine surrender of your preference to his direction. God, is this person someone I should be investing in? Involve your community. Dating in isolation is dangerous. The people who know you, love you, and are grounded in faith can see things you cannot see when your feelings are involved. Let trusted people speak into your relationships. Have the real conversations early. Faith, values, children, money, direction in life. These are not third date conversations by accident. They feel too serious, too soon, but they're exactly the conversation that determines whether two people can actually build something. Have them before you're too emotionally invested to hear the answers clearly. Physical boundaries are not legalistic, they are wisdom. The body keeps score. Physical intimacy creates attachment, real neurological, emotional attachment that clouds your judgment and makes it hard to see a relationship clearly. Boundaries are not about being unloving, they're about protecting both people from bonding in ways that outpace the commitment. Know when to walk away. This is the hardest one, I would say. If the relationship is constantly, if the relationship consistently pulls you away from God, if you pray less, go to church less, compromise more, that is not a relationship helping you become who you're meant to be in God's kingdom. Love should make you feel more yourself, not less. I want to give you a framework before we close, because I think this is the thing that ties everything we're talking about today into something you can actually use in real life. Two phrases that come to mind, and you can write them down if you want to. It's up to you. Strategic intimacy and emotional impulse. These are the two things that are always competing inside a relationship, especially in the early stages. And which one you let lead will determine almost everything about where you end up. Let me define them. Emotional impulse it's the feeling that you get, the chemistry, the pull, the way someone makes you feel when you're with them. Lit up, seen, wanted, alive. Emotional impulse is real. It's not wrong. God designed human beings to feel attraction, connection, and desire. The feeling is not the enemy. But emotional impulse has a serious limitation. It's not wise. It doesn't ask hard questions. It does not slow down. It does not care about your alignment or values or whether this person will still be right for you in 10 years when the feeling has settled into something quieter. Emotional impulse lives entirely in the present tense, and relationships have to survive the future tense. Strategic intimacy is something different. It's an intentional, deliberate decision to build closeness in a way that is ordered, that moves in the right sequence, that allows you to know someone's character before you bonded to them, that keeps your head clear enough to actually see what you're dealing with. Now, strategic intimacy is not unromantic. I know it come off that way, probably the way I'm talking about it. It is not cold or calculated or clinical. It is wisdom applied to one of the most important decisions in your life. Think about it in this way. When you're building a house, you don't start with the interior design. You don't pick the curtains before you laid the foundation. You don't paint the walls before the structure itself. Foundation first, structure second, then everything else. Now, emotional impulse wants to pick the curtains on the first date. Strategic intimacy says, let's make sure the foundation can hold what we're building first. Here's what that looks like in a practical way, in the dating context, of course. Emotional impulse says, we have such a great connection. I can feel this is right. Let's just see where it goes. Strategic intimacy says, this connection is real and I want to honor it by making sure we build it on something that lasts. Let me get to know your character, your values, your relationship with God before I let my heart go all the way in. Emotional impulse says, I know we haven't talked about the important things, yet I feel so good right now. Why complicate it? Strategic intimacy says the important things are not complications, they are the foundation. And whether we wait to talk about them, the more it costs us when we finally do. Emotional impulse says, I know they're not exactly where I am in faith, but the chemistry is there. And maybe we will change. But do you want to take a chance on betting on that? Strategic intimacy says, I care about this person too much to build something with them on a foundation that may not hold. The kindest thing I can do is be honest about that now. Now, I want to be clear about something. Strategic intimacy is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending that the chemistry isn't there. It's not about letting the chemistry make decisions that your character and your discernment should be making. Feelings are information. They are not instructions. The feeling tells you there is something here worth exploring. Strategic intimacy determines whether what's here is worth building. Nathan, from our opening story, was driven entirely by emotional impulse. The feeling was real. The connection was real. But he let the feeling make every decision. When to go deeper, when to have the hard conversations, whether to have them at all. And by the time the foundation issues became undeniable, the emotional investment was so deep that seeing clarity was almost impossible. Strategic intimacy would have asked important questions early. Not to interrogate Jasmine, not to kill a romance. To honor them both enough to know what they were actually building before they built too much of it. If we go to Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 7, it says 3 times, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. Until that time is right, until the foundation is there, until the covenant is in place. That is strategic intimacy. Not the absence of desire, the honoring of it by refusing to let it move faster than wisdom. So let me bring everything together, because today we covered a lot of ground and I want to give you something clear to carry out for this episode. We live in a culture of emotional impulse. Swipe right because the photo looks good. Stay in a situationship because the feeling is comfortable. Avoid the hard conversations because the chemistry is easier to live with than the clarity. And Christians are not immune to any of it. But now you have a different framework. 2 questions you can ask yourself at every stage of a relationship. Is this strategic intimacy or emotional impulse? Is this decision to go deeper, to open up more, to invest more of my heart, being made by my wisdom and my discernment and my relationship with God? Or is it being made by a feeling, the chemistry, if you will, the pull that doesn't want to slow down long enough to ask important questions? And the second question, am I building a foundation or picking curtains. Because curtains are beautiful and feelings are real. But a house is built on curtains. A house built on curtains doesn't survive the first storm. Date with intention. Guard your heart with wisdom. Let strategic intimacy lead where the emotional impulse wants to rush. Pursue with clarity and honor, and trust that God, who designed covenant, love, lasting love, the kind that holds under pressure, to guide you toward the person and the relationship that can carry everything He has for your life. Nathan eventually met someone, a woman from his church. The relationship moved differently, slower in some ways, clearer in others, less intoxicating at first, more real from the beginning. He told me, with Yasmin, the feeling was everything. With her, I actually knew what I was choosing. Choosing clearly felt better than feeling blindly. That's the strategic intimacy. That's the goal. To swipe right on purpose. So that's the episode of Assured and Brazen. If this one hit close to home, share it with someone navigating the dating world right now. They need to hear it. Leave a review if you haven't. Subscribe wherever you listen. And stay tuned because the next episode, we're going somewhere even deeper. Stay assured in who God is and be brazen enough to date like it. See you next episode.